and I'm one of the founding directors of SWPA, which basically means I spend my life explaining the industry to lawyers, banks, and people who pretend to never watch porn. So let's talk about age verification. Let's talk about risk. Let's talk about what actually matters, and let's keep it honest, practical, and useful. All right, let's jump into it. I want to introduce our panel. You two would like to introduce yourselves. Please tell us about yourself.
I'm David Eliason. I'm also one of the founding directors of the SWPA, Sexual Wellness Professionals Alliance, which is a subset of the Free Speech Coalition. Our goal, I think, at SWPA was to kind of have a opportunity for the pleasure product side of the industry to kind of get more involved with the Free Speech Coalition, even though they are kind of operating in unison. I'm also recently elected to the board of directors of the Free Speech Coalition with Scott. So I'll be trying to bring some of the pleasure product situations and challenges that we face both in retail, manufacturing, and distribution to the Free Speech Board. And I think one of my goals on the Free Speech Board is going to be to really try and get the pleasure product side to be a little bit more proactive. Where the last several years, the Free Speech Coalition has had to be reactive because these laws are coming up so fast and people are facing such challenges. Free speech has had to file suits to try and overthrow some of these legislative battles. So we recognize the importance of getting organized, getting our membership strong, working with some folks to develop a pact and things like that to, work with the legislators and try and get our interests represented properly on the front side as opposed to the rear side. I'm also a retailer in South Dakota with Dick and Jane's Naughty Spot. So I've been in the business for about 25 years. So most of my experience and background comes from both the retail side. And happy to have done a lot of research and a lot of looking. I've been through a couple of federal lawsuits. So that's what got me involved.
Hello, everybody. Am I the only one when you said the front or back that mine is? All right. My name is Kasha Johnson, and I love this panel discussion because it gives me a unique opportunity to bring two areas that I spend a lot of time in together. I actually got my career kicked off as a political consultant, working on a lot of campaigns, a lot of lobbying, working with unions, things like that. And a change in my personal life, my child being diagnosed with autism took me into the pleasure realm because I wanted more flexibility, which means I probably cleaned up scandals and then I might be responsible for one or two now. But since I went through that journey, I started off just peddling toys, selling toys, person to person, but that grew up. I became a clinical sexologist. I work with a few brands. Beverly Candy is the one I worked closest with. So shout out to my family back there who's not here, Brian and Suki. But with that, I've also done on the other side is I've built a pretty strong online presence. I have over 1 million followers across platforms, and as a sex educator, have been able to beat these algorithms, beat these rules and laws, while also staying within the confines necessary, which I think is a unique challenge that many of us face in trying to figure out how to be creative about being able to market what we do, stay in compliance of the things, not just the laws, but also platform guidelines and different things like that as well. And I found some very creative ways that work. So I'm looking to contribute to that. And also to speak to different ways that we want to go about this fight, but also acknowledging that these laws that we're going to talk about are put in place to protect the innocence of young people. And I think as much of us as pleasure dealers as we are can all get on one side of that. But we do want to still figure out how do we show up, how do we still operate, and how do we still profit, despite the fact that we don't really disagree with that goal. So that's what I'm here to do. Hopefully, we can all come together collaboratively across the weekend and find some solutions that really help us do it.
Excellent. Got an amazing panel that's here. So, if anybody has any questions while we're going through this panel, please feel free to raise your hand if you have to answer any questions. But I'm going to start with some simple questions. First for the group, how many of you are brick and mortar store owners? Raise your hand. And how many of you have websites who sell adult products? And how many of you have even heard of adult verification laws that are out there? And how many of you have not heard a word about this and they're like, oh shit. All right. Well, I think we're all kind of in the same boat. I think we all kind of know, a little bit. We know we need to do more. We know we need to do more, but we don't have a tremendous amount of direction in terms of what it means. These laws are on a state by state level. So these laws kind of vary, which makes it a little bit more confusing. Like there's no one answer that answers all the questions. And as a website owner, you probably sell to anybody who's going to buy a product in any state that's out there. So you actually need to make yourself aware of how these laws impact you differently in every single state. And we have a number of amazing resources on the Free Speech Coalition website. You should go there and take a look at that because we have a really cool interactive map that's there, which shows on a state by state level where the laws are at, what's been passed, and how that may impact your business. Now, a lot of times, us on the pleasure product side, we try to disassociate ourselves from the boring side of the business, right? Like, I'm boring side, I don't have to worry about that stuff. It doesn't matter to me. And, I've said this before in front of everybody, like the world outside of this room, we are all in the same bucket. You do realize whether you are selling pornography or you're slinging dildos, right? We are all in the same box. And we need to keep ourselves aware of what's happening to our friends in the other side of the business because those things, they trickle onto us. And these adult verification laws have some pretty big potential impacts in terms of how we need to operate our business moving forward. So I'm going to ask the panel a few questions. And if anybody, like I said, has any questions or comments or things they want to add, feel free to add. At a practical level, what are the laws like Florida HB3 actually trying to do, and who are they really aimed at? You want to take that?
The laws, really, they operate under the guise of protecting children. They don't want the children to be scarred and harmed and whatever by content that's not appropriate to their age. Unfortunately, the laws are very specifically written very ambiguously and very broad with not clear definitions. There's no clear guideline to say, this is what is harmful to a minor. This is what we're going to consider. This is what we're going to pursue. The other problem that I think a lot of these laws have, several of the states have written their laws, that it's not so much that I'm worried about the government coming after me for violating the statute. They've put in civil methods. So Johnny's mother in Miami can say she didn't appreciate Johnny going on to Doc Johnson's website and looking at a stroker and seeing an image of a vagina. And so she can go hire an ambulance chasing attorney and file a lawsuit against me and my website, my affiliates, or even potentially Doc Johnson. So the real battle becomes is we're not fighting the government specifically now. We're fighting every ambulance chasing attorney who goes out and runs an ad that says, if your child was harmed by viewing something online, call 555 porn harm today. And filing a lawsuit against me that I now have to defend. The other thing, and Scott brought up a great point on the initial presentation here, a lot of these laws are not specific to my jurisdiction. So even though I personally am based in South Dakota, my website is based on a server that's located in South Dakota. If somebody from Oklahoma chooses to log onto my site, I have to be compliant with Oklahoma. And I just don't have the resources, the power, the knowledge to bring myself up to speed on every single state or local or regional regulation. So, we would like to think that zoning and regulatory issues belong in local jurisdictions. And now I have to look at the rules for Los Angeles, but I also have to look at the laws for LA County, but I also have to look at the laws for the state of California to make sure that anybody coming from any of those jurisdictions to my website in South Dakota, that I'm following all of those rules as well. So it all gets very complicated, very cumbersome, and can get very expensive.
One of the things that you said that I want to bring back to the top is the specific aspect that there is nothing is specific. And I think that for a lot of us, it's put in, not just now, but over time, we've been winging it, trying to do things that we think will work and hope that we don't end up with some sort of flag or ban and then finding some sort of open-ended language that can be looped into us, but didn't really say this specifically. And that's what you're constantly fighting. I like to think of solution basis, and I also am the kind of person who likes to work smarter, not harder. And one of the things that I I've done that I've deployed on my website and also across my platforms socially is I use the AI to beat the systems. I feed the laws to an AI, right? I build specific GPTs or whichever platform you use that have the ability to store state by state legislation in a way that my brain doesn't want to do because I've got 20 million things on the list already. But once I feed it that information, as I'm creating ads, as I'm creating posts, as I'm creating different images, I say, I want to create something that does this, but stays away from this, and this. Be mindful of the laws here, 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 here. Give me something that allows me to do this. And then I build my brain from wherever it feeds me. The reason why I'm saying that is because I realize that it takes way more energy to fight than to just somewhat get it right. But I do also want to do it in a way, like I said, that helps me benefit. One of the things that we didn't talk about is it doesn't just target your site. You have to be compliant, or Google or whatever ad platforms that you may be working with also have to stick to the same compliance. So in a way, it's almost cutting you in a little bit more because not only do you have to meet it for yourself, but you have to make sure that your ad partners and X, Y, and Z can't be dinged in the process of going to work with you. So I found that doing that has kind of worked. It's let me, for lack of a better term, market the same things, get the same sales, but like an old school love song where my marketing isn't direct, but those who need to know will get the point, and those whose ears and eyes shouldn't are probably not old enough and they won't be able to pick up on either. So I just think that we have to look at solutions there while the coalitions, while others are fighting the legality of it, because that can take a pretty long time and it's a lot of money that gets wrapped up in those legal battles. So.
Great answers. And I'll just give some feedback in terms of suggestions that I have in terms of being compliant. The purpose of these laws is actually to go after the content, right? Like the intent was to go after the porn sites that are out there. And once again, we get kind of wrapped up in that as well. Now, Doc Johnson, I sell a lot of dicks, right? I sell Dread's 13-inch penis on my homepage, that penis floating across the homepage, right? So, is that considered, content, right? That's what it comes down to. So what we've been able to kind of figure out to this point, which is kind of a moving target, is that if Dread had his penis in his hands, right, in that picture, that would be considered content. But just selling Dread's, bulk image, you should be okay. I say you should be okay. Contact your attorneys, please. Free legal advice. And so that's kind of how, we have determined whether it's content or not, right? So we limited movement, so we'll show movement of toys for the most part. But if that toy is being shown in use in any way, I mean, there's times when we take a bullet vibrator and have a picture of a vagina and show where like you're supposed to be touching. Simple, right? Education. But that can be considered sexual content. And I don't fear the states as much as I fear the Prop 65 image chasing attorneys. All of us who went through Prop 65, we all know what that was like. It wasn't the state that was giving us a hard time. All of us on the toy side, when we compliance with Prop 65 laws, it was the attorneys that were posting all these civil lawsuits. And though you may feel that you're compliant, the amount of money that you spend in defense can bring a lot of companies down. So it's important that you're familiar with how to stay compliant. Kasha, 5 states explicitly target BDSM in their age verification laws. Do you worry that non-explicit kinky content could create liability to websites?
I do. And I think because if we look at it technically, there really isn't many places that BDSM is fully legal, right? We know that there's a lot of gray areas there. And the thing that we use for protection is enforcing things like consent and making sure that all parties are in agreement with the things that they're doing. But like you said, it doesn't even have to be specific. Because elements like I like to be restrained can be linked to kidnapping, right? Or torturing or something like that. As these things have these sort of areas of gray that can be challenging. I'll give you an example. I learned this lesson a couple years ago. I use what I would consider non like direct to the point. And he kind of holding my arms across my lap and my feet like this and saying, you know, I love to be a good girl. And I had this illusion of being tied up. And that was flaggable, right? That was something, even though I wasn't specifically using any product, just me suggesting what I was doing was considered to be a promotion of that. So that's where you get really tricky and have to get creative about it. So I said, I want to try and see if there's another way to approach this. I looked at what I was wearing in the video. I had a little cleavage out. I said, let's get rid of the cleavage. Let's get rid of this. And I used the same post, but I posted something just to trick and see what would happen. And I remember putting something to the caption and saying, my people were held back for years. And this is same video, flew right on through. Right? So you do have to be very careful and you have to use the pun-like language that will get you to that, even on your websites and your descriptions and your things like that, because they're now using technology to scan. There's not an actual human half the time. And to get to an actual human would cost you because you would have to probably take them to court or something of that matter. So you're just dealing with the ding, which collects in a record that is like a slap on the wrist at the time before eventually we're looking to shut something down. Or like you said, payment processors for one, don't want to be on the side of certain things too. So either way, the bottom line is even if the goal is not to be direct, you have to be extremely strategic and the language. A lot of people are just thinking about imagery, but they're looking for words. They know that we spell sex with an KS, spelling SEK, or anything like that, or GGS. They literally are training their systems to screen for even the alias like language that we use, and that becomes a thing. So the word BDSM, I've gotten rid of. But when I say kink exploration, that actually passes the vibe check. So I've had to refrain from using BDSM specifically or use a word that means the same thing. I think for us, if you are into BDSM, you know what the hell is being said, right? You know what I mean? So you kind of got to work around it that way. And if you're not sure, that's why I say I'm not using my brain stressed any longer. I'm not in the business of pleasure to be stressed, right? Like it kind of beats the whole point. I literally will just double check something I do and say, hey, what's another word? Or will this word pass the law of vibe check? Or whatever the case is. And tell me the truth. And if not, what other word can I use in place of this? Because you'd be surprised how one word in an entire sentence can do that. I'll leave you with this. Even on the adult side, behind paywalls, platforms like OnlyFans, you can't put the word blood in a caption. You cannot put the word blood, but you can put a blood emoji. Right? So it's kind of like this is the loophole, but because they perceive the word blood to be associated with something that could be on a line of violence or crime, that word is a trigger. So that's what I think we have to spend our time getting educated on because their systems are smarter than we actually believe them to be, and we're getting away with it. We're not always doing just that, we're just collecting that's what I can say, a watchful eye. You get in trouble once, they're like, now we're gonna be on you. And then at that point, even the smallest things can jeopardize you.
Awesome, great response. I'll say this too, stop being bitter and start being smart, right? Take that energy and that frustration and put that into action. Get involved. You know, do the things that you need to do for your company, for your business. Do the things you need to do for our industry. So again, I'm encouraging everybody's, participation in the SWPA group. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end. We have a mixer, so you can come and meet a number of us. But take that energy and put it into action. You got to do it because you're sitting back, you're waiting, and you're going to find yourself one day waking up and your website's been shut down and it's just gone and you don't know what happened. And it happens every single day. David, last year we saw a bill in Texas, SB 3003, that specifically required pleasure product retailers to perform age verifications at point of sale, regardless of what's shown on their website. Was the community sufficiently alarmed by this?
I don't know if our community was significantly alarmed by it. The greater community, I don't think is paying any attention to it until they ended up in a shopping situation where they would have been asked for it. thankfully, I believe Texas, got killed in committee, so it never made it into statute, so have not had to worry about it. When I read it initially in South Dakota's laws that they passed there, have, again, because they're so broad and so ambiguous, they left out important terms like online or internet. And so it says, if you sell pornography. And so in our brick and mortar stores, we switched our policies to government issued identification for every single person who walks in the door, regardless of age. We're actually looking at some products, some companies, I'll talk to you privately about if you want to know about them. But they have basically a little scanner type of application where you can scan the barcode on a driver's license. And we've looked at those solutions because we wanted to be able to document that we actually checked the ID of the person who came into the building and made a purchase. So I think that there is, you know, probably a overreaction sometimes that I just know in a conservative state like I come from, they'll find any little thing they can to drop the hammer. And so I'm going to go over and beyond to say, hey, I'm scanning everybody and I'm checking every ID. If Johnny says he came into my store and bought that product and that's why he got caught with that DVD, when he tells me the date and time, my surveillance camera can go back and say, here's little Johnny and here's the time that we scanned that driver's license and we sold that to this person of this age. And it will serve as it's encrypted, it's stored off-site with the provider, so we don't have any control over it. The other thing we've ended up turning into a little bit of a positive, we've been able to use it as a loss prevention tool. So if somebody who's caught shoplifting in our facility, we can take the video surveillance of the shoplifter and we can go back and say, hey, officer, here's a copy of the driver's license that we scanned with his name and address. You feel free to go to his house and arrest him and, you know, make sure we get him prosecuted.
And I suggested all the websites that are out there too, that you have some type of age verification at checkout. That's really important that you do that. I think it's time to go beyond just the like, click this button if you're over 18. There are tools that are in place that can verify the consumer's age at checkout. Very similar to if you were to go on to Total Bev or, you know, Bevmo or any of these sites and buy alcohol and they verify your age at checkout. I think it's a really, really good tool to have in place so that if you do have issues, that at least you've got something to fall back on in terms of verification of age of that consumer.
Scott, is it okay if I add something really quick on my things? Guys, I think that the fear that a lot of us have dealt with is people now being concerned about their identity being out there. One of the things that I always try to remind folks is during the pandemic, we found a way to get alcohol delivered home. People have no issue getting their ID scanned by a dasher or someone in order to get it. They understand that ID verification is required to make certain things convenient to them. Online shopping is a convenience, right? So I also think that it's really important that you get ahead of it with the language being, you know, preventative instead of reactive because you said something, warning. I don't like to wait for warnings. And I think the root of adaptability is already having a plan in case shit goes crazy. I say that to say, make the language really clear. We're using a third-party source that does not store your information. I recommend a third-party source, not your own, because then you now have the responsibility of handling people's sensitive data. You want the protection of data breaches not being something that comes back to you and that the third party have to deal with that liability on that front, because even you said the platform you use is connected to a party outside of your store who's managing that part of the process. It eliminates you from the liability of handling people's sensitive data. And I think with the online ones, the great thing is they now have the ones that have tokens. So a person verifies through their platform and the only thing you receive is a token that represents 18 and older. So you're able to say with confidence to your consumer, we do not collect or keep your data. We receive this confirmation from our third-party source who takes the data, grants us a token, and then your information is removed from their system. So you can shop with, you know, certainty that you're going to still have the discretion that that you are used to or that you like. So I wanted to share that because I did have a friend who were trying to manage that their own, they spent a ton of money on a platform to build these age verification things. And that became the issue that they dealt with. Now they have to pay extra money to secure the information they're capturing. So eliminate that bill for yourself if you can.
And that's, I mean, that, you bring up a really good point, because that's one of the challenges with this, with the A&E laws that are out there, is that even though we're compliant on the age verification side, it puts us like smack dab in the middle of privacy issues, right? And like, you can't win, right? So now you're collecting information. We are working on a solution, an industry, approved solution with Free Speech Coalition that we're hoping to launch in the next 60 to 90 days. You'll hear more about it. It'll be a service that you guys can add to your website. And, you know, we are very, very cautious about what we introduce to our people. We have lots of different companies out there that prey on our industry, right? And they prey on us because, you know, they feel that like we're desperate and, you know, we've got to use those services. This was something that we fully vetted. And, you know, we made sure that we were fully in compliant and asked all the questions that are going to protect us as an industry. So we'll let you know more about that. But we're really excited to be able to launch that and offer that to everybody and have some affordable option that's there. But I think that, you know, in terms of just making sure that the age verification and checkout, that's fairly inexpensive thing. That's something we need to keep doing. And it's just, yes, I'm going to continue. Many people think selling sex toys automatically equals porn. Usually false. What's the biggest misunderstanding that you're seeing in our industry right now about this topic?
Well, what I will say is, with this particular one, the only way to eliminate that constant, you always want to merge everything together, is by making sure that you have some level of education in the middle. Porn is not designed for education, it's designed for entertainment, right? Whereas the things that you're moving, pleasure type products, are designed for people's pleasure. But even though we know that that is better for people's overall health, right? And that's the thing that we're looking to do. Bring people pleasure, bring people joy. Orgasms have positive impacts on us, but we can say all the things and they still find a way to sexualize. So I think that the key way that you keep that separation, and I think that we all should start migrating to, is by making sure that we're putting that right language that is more health focused, that kind of moves pleasure from seeming like something we're doing for novelty as opposed to something that we're doing for longevity. We know the benefits of a good prostate toy, right? We know that orgasms release positive hormones, but if we don't say you're looking for that serotonin release that you've been looking for, or whatever the case is, then you want to check this out, right? Because believe it or not, when they see those kinds of words, those same filters read sex education. They don't read those words and think this is for purpose of pleasure or some type of raunchy, tone that they try to attach it to. So I will say, you're right. It's almost impossible to get anyone who's of the mindset of seeing it all as one. That's not our target customer anyway. We don't really want to work on fighting against someone who's likely not, as opposed to creating the separation for the individuals who want to feel like they can explore their bodies and, their sexuality with themselves or their partners without the shame that's attached to it being so close to content that is more risque. So the way you do that is we teach.
I would add to that, from a retailer's perspective, the line easily gets blurred because we certainly have people who are coming in and we send all of our staff through education. Some of our distributors have programs, and we have all our staff get complete to get up to speed and get some certifications so they can address pelvic floor health and incontinence or ED or whatever the topic is. We sell a lot of pleasure products, but a lot of times those pleasure products, I've looked at some products here at the show that involve, virtual reality and things. So there's not only the pleasure side of it, but there's the entertainment side of it. So some products tend to strive to both. And so you have to kind of keep yourself up to speed on both sides of the equation. So those are the challenges that we're continually faced. And we have some companies that are very good about, a lot of the companies have changed their packaging to be very mainstream. Some of that was designed to try and tap into, mainstream retail. They wanted to be able to reach Target or Walmart or Walgreens with their brands. But they've also have other companies that are a little bit more dated, I guess we'll call it, or old school, that they want to put the image right there on the box that shows all the graphic content. And, we've laid our stores out. I kind of, used to refer to it to my friends or whatever as the Larry Flint method. And you walk into a hustler store, the further back in the store you got, the more aggressive the theme of the store became. So when you walked in the front door, we had the lingerie and the games and the silly stuff. And as you got to the very back wall, you could find the DVDs and the strokers and the extreme toys. And so sometimes it's laying out your floor plan or whatever and being aware and giving that customer that opportunity to get to their point where they're comfortable. But as far as the age verification stuff is concerned, it's a blurry line between entertainment and pleasure.
And I mean, I know that like, the majority of us in this room, have a certain feeling about Amazon, right? And what that does to our industry, but I will say that if it's okay on Amazon, it's probably gonna be okay on the website, right? Go take a look at Amazon, go to our category, look at how products are shown. Amazon is like, they will bump images out in a heartbeat automatically if it's scanned and seen as adult content. And sometimes like going and looking at these big boys that are out there and what they're doing is a way that you can kind of set the base ground of what you can be doing. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw Spencer's into the mix.
Yep. Yes.
So with kids coming in the store and they're seeing the same content that's in our store, our boutiques, how do we fight that?
I mean, look, it's the irony in this whole thing that AV builds is that the individual that it's there to protect is laughing at us. These kids are going on VPNs and laughing at us.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is the funniest shit ever. Like, you think you're stopping me from getting my horn? Like, I'm just gonna go use a VPN and let you guys fight all this. So it's ridiculous in terms of like where this is all coming from and who we're protecting. And Spencer Gifts, I mean, none of this stuff has fully hit the brick and mortar side yet. These laws are for onliners and, transactions that are taking place online. But we know where this leads to, right? Eventually, it's going to come into our brick and mortar locations. Spencer Gifts, I know because I work with them, they do have age vetting software. Like they are supposed to be asking for age. Sometimes they don't.
I will say, ironically, if for those who are on the side of the fight, Walmart and CVS are also good examples. They also carry pleasure products. And you know what, if I'm honest, even young, I remember seeing even in the family planning section, there are a lot of things that toggle that line. So I also think that is to be thought about and brought into question because we see that I literally couldn't believe the first time I saw a sex toy in a Walmart shelf. And I was just like, you're giving me this kind of bullshit, because nothing about that aisle was locked off. In fact, there wasn't even a lot over the shelf housing the toy. And that also blew my mind. But that also tells me, like you said, the giants have figured it out. And it might be worth actually looking into why or how it was that a retailer as large as them were able to put this kind of product in a standard aisle, not behind an 18-year-old bill like you're required if you're having a brick and mortar. And you can still walk in and get it. I do know at checkout there is a verification, but that doesn't stop them from perusing and being exposed to it. So is the law about the purchase or the exposure, right? Because in that case, then you might have to fight there, right? So I'm just saying that because as she said it, it hit my mind, and I was like, yeah, she's probably right about that. I definitely had to cover my kids' ears. I mean, I was walking by a cook ring in a Walmart, right? And they're all over my house. And so,
They know.
oh yeah, I have to hide it. My 5-year-old literally has asked Siri when I told her that Wendy's was closed. And he said, Siri, is Wendy's closed? And Siri lied and told me the truth. And now mommy's a liar. So my 5-year-old can figure out how to use tech to prove me wrong. You are so right. By 10, they're already logging into some of the system, right?
They are laughing at us,
Yeah, they are. The kids, they're well beyond this.
which is very frustrating. David, did you want to add anything to that at all?
No, I think you guys covered it really well. I would follow up on the kind of the Walmart Spencer Gifts or whatever comments, because two things. I know Walmart specifically has reached out to manufacturers that have designed packaging that's friendly to their environment so they can have the products in the stores. I know as my other part-time job is a moderator on P3, I think they're on P3. I'm that guy that keeps blocking your content that's not on Wednesdays. Jimmy, if you're here, I'm sorry. So anyway, everybody was so upset that Walmart was even selling a C-shaped toy or whatever it was. And I really do believe that they are really providing a good service to us, because that person that goes in and buys that entry-level product at Walmart, when they want to, I can't think of it as a gateway drug, right? They tried a little something, they've opened their mind to trying a toy. When they want to go to the next level, they're gonna have to come see one of us to go to that next level, because Walmart is not going to serve that level. The other thing Walmart is never going to serve, matter of fact, I was just talking to somebody from Joe just a minute ago before lunch. The people walk into a Walmart store. Can you imagine for 1 second walking into an associate of Walmart and asking if this product is good for clitoral stimulation? I'm fairly certain that the manager would have you blacklisted to never return to Walmart again. So, so you're not going to get the education, the service, and the what you deserve when you purchase these products. So from that regard, I think it's also a tool for them to be sending customer stuff.
Yeah, I think that, some of the stuff that we see that's in traditional non-adult, non-specialty retail, there's, I know people have feelings about that, but I think it's some of the best marketing for our industry that we can have, right? Because it's talking to the masses. I mean, if you go into a lot of these brick and mortar retailers, you got to push the right button, right? To have some 17-year-old that we're trying to come over, open up, a glass shelf to be able to take out, your extended products, but people see those brands that are there, and commonly I have my neighbors come and like, oh my God, you see how much stuff they know what I do. They're like, you see that the set like at Walmart, it's just getting bigger and bigger. So for them in their minds, it's letting you know that like this category is an emerging, for them it's emerging, for us it's been around for a long time, but a growing category, and brings in that new consumer. So I think, as long as we can hold our price points in those different areas and they're not undercutting the brick and mortar retailers, that it's not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. It's controlled properly.
So Pornhub, you can go on, click enter, I'm 18. No.
Depending on the state, can't do it in Texas.
Oh, so they actually
Yep.
control it by oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. So in Cali, it's click, I'm 18 and I'm all,
Shut
Yeah.
down on
I was wondering if it was because it was free, because there's a lot of, yeah.
Arkansas, shut down.
Yeah, and that's
That's just today.
Pornhub is to think that city.
Yeah.
Right? So
Right.
Pornhub just said we're out. Like we're out of the state. Screw it.
Yep.
But they also know that VPNs
Yeah.
are gonna get people around.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I also feel like that's a short-term solution, because this thing is spreading. They're not stopping. They're trying to continue.
Yeah.
So if you start to think, I'm gonna close down in every state that this shows up, and that means every time one pops up, you just close down a major market of yours or something like that. Eventually, you're no longer gonna be operating. So I see that as like, okay, they did that now. That gets them good in certain places. But what's the long-term plan for when other states, when we know, typically redder states are gonna be the ones who are more for it, are you gonna close down operations in all of those states, or
Right.
are you gonna find a way to, navigate it? So.
I would add to that too, again, just before lunch, I was talking to some folks, asked me questions about this panel. They were kind of questioning, again, if Pornhub cuts off, like they did South Dakota, Florida, Texas, all of those states, if you go on and try and pull it up, it just says, hey, sorry about your luck, have a nice day. And they said, well, there's one particular company that, is still there. This person lives in Florida. And they said, oh, I still get onto whatever website.com. And how does that work? And I said, well, their registration, if you look at it, is linked in Czechoslovakia. And so they just register in a foreign country with the far reaching arm of the US government can't get a hold of them in Czechoslovakia. So yes, they're going on some website that now we also don't really have any control over the commerce, the revenue, all the things that are associated with it. We're losing out on those tax dollars. So we're really, doing a giant disservice to the entire economy, effectively.
I mean, just to kind of show kind of how it can trickle out globally. I was in Mexico and I went on Pornhub, like don't judge me, it's my job. Okay? And I couldn't get on Pornhub in Mexico because the ISP that that hotel used was based in Texas, right? And so we don't even think about those things a lot of times where the ISP is based. So I mean, the stuff starts to really trigger up. Hi.
I had this media next to all videos, but it's like certain photographs that we consider content. I work for a company and we do the websites for a lot of like the adult manufacturers like the and I'm starting to see some manufacturers are going instead of like you had mentioned about oh there's a little bit and there's design. They're doing like pen and ink drawings. Is that something that we think would that be considered more like textbook style educational or is this kind of software is rolling and saying, oh no, it's still adult, they're still drawing with the child?
Yeah, I mean, the real answer is nobody knows, right? And I think that it's a matter of us just trying to have some justification if we ever do have some type of legal issue. Like this is what we decided to do in order to help, minimize our liability that's there. But I think that, it stinks because like us who build these brands, like we spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort to show the entire concept of our products. And it really sucks because it takes so much of the creativity, the amazing staff that I have, and art team who designs all this stuff, and then you can't have the full experience. What I do think though, is that this is going to help to also create a resurgence on the brick and mortar side, right? That, we saw this huge rush for just buying things online. We saw that during the pandemic. And because we couldn't go anywhere. And I think that like we're gonna start going back to the store again, right? If I gotta go and show my ID or go through all this age verification, in order for me to buy my bottle of personal lubricant on this website, I might as well go to the local store and buy my products. So, I mean, that might be a good thing. We are hearing from some brick and mortar retailers that their sales of porn DVDs are going way up. Yeah, right. I mean, that was dying forever, and now people are seeing a resurgence because they can't access the content that they used to access online. So I think we need to look at these things as opportunities as well, and how do we get ahead of these opportunities?
I'd also say that we use a lot of the creativity and design to remember the same and how to market them. Something that, I've done with Double Candy that's worked for us, it's working. We're slowly seeing the increases is that we transitioned to marketing our products on our podcast, right? And I was like, I got this thought, right? Let's try, since this is a way of seeming to also be trending. People are looking for content that they want to consume. And they're looking at it based on what that content is on. You do have a bunch of people out there who are pleasure seekers, like you said, entry level folks who do want to learn. So we tested it. We said we took the same product that we got flagged for showing just a standard video online. Like it wasn't even anything person, anything, it was just like a model. And that got removed. But we talked about the same thing on a podcast and conversation and say, have you ever heard of this? And then I'm showing it to a person. That doesn't get dinged. Not only is it not getting removed because there's two sets of guidelines. People don't realize there's community and then there's recommendation guidelines. One determines if they will expose you to others, and one determines if they will let your content exist, right? So the prior post was getting dinged for recommendation, meaning we're going to now suppress you, we're going to make it hard for people to see you, and that's obviously going to impact your bottom line. Whereas this didn't ding the same guideline. This said, this is a conversation. I'm saying, well, if you've only experienced it this way, you tried it this way, something like this product would help. They don't mean that as it. So to the point of the drawings, things like that, you do got to kind of get out of that creative. Womanizer has done that really well on a lot of their ads on their website, or even if you go to a product description, it's like this animated imagery of them showing the toy going over a little hood or something like that, and like post signals there get the point. And I've noticed that that has been something that's been well on any platform that Womanizer products to sell. That I've seen those videos, they've not had problems it seems. So I would think that the cartoon-like imagery is working, but the question that I have used as a rule of thumb, whenever I'm choosing whether this is something that I can use or not, is, does this arouse them? I think that if it's arousing and it's entertaining, then it toggles the line of adult content. As opposed to using Schoolhouse Rock like things where I'm teaching, this is a bill, hey, I'm Bill, right? If it does that, then it's likely considered educational and not content. So that's just, a parameter in the question you can ask as you're creating on it, because I have seen some cartoons that are pretty visual.
Yeah, content.
I found myself looking for 2 seconds and it's like,
Honestly, have you met a teenage boy that's dating sexualized?
anything. I've got 3 of them that I'm saying, so, yeah, but you're right, 100%.
Was there any other questions from the audience or any input that anybody wanted to give in the audience for us? Hopefully we've been able to disperse.
So you said that the bills are ambiguous. Do they target streaming, or do they like how are they talking about how the content's delivered? Are they specific to the delivery method of the content?
No, it's not as much the delivery method. It's on a website, and if you are serving up that content in any kind of way, you need to verify it. I mean, if you had a free website, right, and you had pornography on that free website, content that stimulates a minor, then you need to have the necessary age verification software in place to vet that person's.
I think I'll add to that a little bit, is a lot of those laws are written so ambiguously that it's impossible for you to navigate what they are. And that's the
rule.
government's position, is to make them so complicated that no reasonable person could decipher what is. A lot of the bills, not all of them, but several states have written their bills as, content harmful to minors, that they delivered to minors, but it doesn't say delivered via the internet, or delivered via streaming, or delivered via brick and mortar, or delivered, it just says the minor saw it. And so did it come from my Facebook ad that I ran? Did it come from some other source, print magazine, or whatever it is that I'm doing? So all of these laws that come in, a lot of times you can try and use it defense. Unfortunately, we don't have Jeffrey here to confirm, but my understanding is did you have intent to harm the minor, or did you purposely put that out there thinking that, hey, if people saw that, we would have this issue? And if somebody talked about going to line drawings, you can make a defense and say, hey, I was trying to avoid this harm, and I took this step to avoid that harm. That could be a reasonable defense to get you out of a jam. I don't think it's going to help you when Morgan comes to sue you for delivering it to, poor little Johnny in Miami who saw the picture. But
Yeah, and also one thing that you should know, I worked a lot with the teachers associations a while ago, and this was actually on when they were advocating for sex education of certain ages for certain, in schools. As they got older, they wanted to teach kids more. But the US as a whole, from the federal standpoint, means any education that doesn't promote abstinence as inappropriate for a minor, right? So I think that's an important thing to know. I would say anything that goes beyond what sex ed is classified as for a school-like setting is something that you just have to be careful with. So I love what you said about making sure that it doesn't show harm by the way of what you're doing, but just be mindful that that is what's deemed to be, anything beyond abstinence like teachings are considered to be inappropriate for someone under the age. Some places it's like 16, some places it's 18, but just know that. So if you can't claim it to be educational from that end, then you run that risk. And I would also, on the same side of it, again, if I watch this, am I aroused? It's likely, if it has the ability to arouse a minor or have them kind of hooked on something that they probably wouldn't get exposed to on a regular Tuesday, then you're toggling the line. But I also haven't heard anything about streaming, like how it's delivered. It's more so what are you doing?
Right.
And certain states have certain percentages too. So there's percentage states as well. I mean, this is why I tell it's important for everyone to go and do their research on a state by state level, because they vary. They're all a little bit different. We, on the free speech side, try to put up a federal defense in Texas, because our goal is basically, if this is a federal thing, we fight one entity as compared to it being a state by state thing. And then you have counties.
Right.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
different, right? So, please educate yourself on this stuff. It's really important that you know, because like I said, if you got a website, you're thinking about the state that you're in, you need to be thinking about the customer you are serving and what's happening in that website. And the cost of defense is extremely expensive, right? Even when found not guilty, the cost of defense can cripple a business. So I think it's really important that you talk to us. We have a mixer today.
No, it was yesterday.
Yesterday.
Did I miss the mixer?
Outside.
I told you not to start drinking at lunch.
Very-
I think most people were drunk probably
I-
120, so.
I was selling stuff.
Yeah.
That being
Come
said,
to the Paradise Happy Hour. We can coordinate. We're all in this together. We're a team. Yeah.
yes, sir, before you, and I'm not sure if you're about to eat. So I have a podcast, it's focused on sex, love, relationships, right? And it's hard for us to get sponsors. And I'm listening to the conversation, I'm not really sure if this lands for everybody, but as the world changes, why not start marketing in the way the world is changing? Kasha said herself that the Business of Pleasure podcast, they do choice on the podcast. I would like to know, like, what is the, if you don't mind telling us, how does that transfer to sales? Like,
So, on social media, we use the platform ManyChat. ManyChat, for those who are unaware, is actually the official platform that Meta collaborates with. They also service TikTok. It's when you see people comment this code word in the chat, and we'll send you the link. On Facebook, it replies in a message to the user. Same thing on Instagram. The reason why that's important to know is because it now takes the transactional part into a private message, which a consumer that's not happening publicly. But what we've done is, if I'm talking about a certain product and playfully, I don't just talk about what the product does. I go, well, imagine if you took this home and storytelling, very important, very important. And then as we share that clip moment of it, we say, if you're interested in pepper pleaser, or if you're interested in whatever blue, comment, slip and flip, or tasty, or some code word. Then we're DMing them, but when they respond with that, they're giving us permission to message them. This is important for those platforms. Otherwise, when you contact your customers, you're going into this sort of spam or folder that's hidden that they don't see without clicking something. But this allows them to consent to getting a message from you. And then before the link goes, it says, hey, you commented that you wanted so-and-so. Send me the link and we'll send it to you. What that gets them to do is accept your message and then request the link. They get it, they shop, they buy, and we can see that they follow the link that came through ManyChat. So that's how we can correlate that the actual purchase came from this platform versus someone who's going to the website and buying. So that's helped us a lot in getting around it, conversational like demonstrations of an item, and having a strict tight funnel to do it. Not to mention, ManyChat is a platform. I know that people got budgets for how much we spend on marketing, but it's like $15 a month until you got thousands of people. Then it's going up to maybe $50 a month, which is still highly manageable, right? For you to not have to contact consumers one by one, send them the info. You can use this for anything. It can be if you're hosting an event and you're promoting the event. So we found multiple ways to make this one tool benefit us. And using the podcast, we're able to weekly give new content to our audience. So whatever we're marketing, we can market in real time. So it's been far more, it's a combination of timeless content, but it's almost like our current events way of keeping our audience talking to us, because the average person who buys a pleasure product, they're not checking for you for a while until they need another pleasure product. But if they're staying engaged in content that you're putting out on the platform and you're constantly introducing what you offer on that platform, you also increase the number of things that they want to buy from you. A lot of us as retailers don't just sell toys, don't just sell lube. Some of us have bath and body, massage oils, things that are on the cleaner side. We've used, when we do demos of those products, we will pay for ads on Meta for those points. So our massage oil demo or massage candles and things like that. When I talk about lube alongside Kegel exerciser or vaginal dilators, for example, that is also education You've been able to get, you mentioned the toys that toggle the line of entertainment. I would say easily that, all my body design, the people crush system, right? Which is a health system, but also can be a toy. So we don't talk about that part. We just say, hey, we've got another app that lets you do fun things with your partner. End of sentence, right? Like, pick up what I'm putting down. It goes to the sun. Let them control you when you're at dinner. Those types of things are the ways that we're talking about on remote control things. So it's worked. It's worked, and we've reached over 9 million people since maybe June, right? From June to December, our analytics showed that our clips reached 9 million users across social media platforms. So they're also getting shared because we're having interesting discussions about sex. And what this has taught me in general is that the world is not tired of sex. They're tired of unqualified voices talking about it. And that's what we're up against. We're up against the fact that now your average kid can scroll anywhere and hear someone launchingly talk about what they like on their ass. And that's the thing that's harmful. But what we're doing is not the harmful part, right? So I'm just saying that's one of the ways. Podcasts are not going anywhere. Netflix just created an entire division to now host podcasts on Netflix. What that tells me is it's not going anywhere. And it's kind of like a combination of what you get from influencer marketing, but on a continuous sort of thing, because influencers also make it for $9 billion of the economy sales in 2025. So it's letting you know that people actually care to buy from a place that values education and a voice that they trust. Be the voice that they trust is the way I can say it, or find people who are voices that you trust to be the people who carry that message out there for you. I think that it's much smarter than paying for just general advertisements, to have a person that's literally talking about this all the time, saying, hey, this is the product that I use. Here's how I did it. This was the reaction. Here was it. And now a person sees it as relatable.
Authenticity.
Authenticity will always rule. So, yeah.
Well, I think, we are at the end of our time. It's I think a great way to wrap this up. We could do this again in 30 days and I'd have more information. We can do this again in 90 days and I'd have more information. I mean, this is ever evolving. And this is why I think it's really important that you're a part of our organization. And so you can keep yourself abreast of what's going on in real time. David, did you have any final words that you wanted to add?
I think you're gonna hit it, but I'll just throw it out there. You can put the cherry on it at the end. Getting involved is key. The SWPA, they hosted the mixer last night that Scott wasn't at. That's right. He was way off in the corner. I told him we shouldn't serve booze, but getting involved and helping, we need the people to be on committees and be involved in the processes. We're trying to do a lot of things with SWPA. We've got a mentorship program that's fantastic, where we've been assigning mentees and mentors together so that a lot of you maybe new to our space don't have to suffer through all the same mistakes and learning curves that those of us who've been around for 20 or 30 years have had to navigate. We've got some other exciting things coming down the pipeline that we're working on that, they'll be announced when they're ready to go public. That it's right now, I think there's a $100 a year for membership into the SWPA side. If you feel like you're more of a content creation side, the FSC side obviously is continuing all the work that they've done. They did a Supreme Court case recently. It didn't come down the way that FSC had hoped. But you know what, they still need to fight those cases and be involved. And so that involves you guys stepping up and joining and paying a membership due and, having your voice heard and utilizing the resources that we have on there.
Great way to wrap that up. I appreciate it. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for everybody who took the time to listen to us today. And once again, if you have any questions, we are here. We're available for you. We love questions because a lot of times you guys are asking us things that we have to go get answers for. And that's how we learn as well. We are you. So we're representatives of you. So keep us informed. I appreciate it. I hope to see everybody at the Paradise event today because I'll be there. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you guys.
Guys. What time is that?
Bye.
5?
I know, I got Sarah to end. I was like, what if everybody has like meetings.
Is it-
Are you gonna,
Is that-
yeah, just where we had breakfast?
Oh, there, yeah, okay, cool.
We'll have fun.
Well, I love your